On tonight's headlines, North Korea fired 3 short-range ballistic missiles Saturday, according to the U.S. military, reviving tensions with Washington after President Trump had said Pyongyang was starting to show some respect. Hurricane Harvey, the largest storm to hit the U.S. since Hurricane Katrina in 2005, slammed into the Texas coast. Our ABC correspondent in Texas gives us a glimpse of the storm. Belgian soldiers have shot dead a man in Brussels who attacked troops with a knife. Our ABC bureau in Russia attends a press briefing held by Philippine and Indonesian ambassadors as part of celebrations of the ASEAN's 50th anniversary.
And last year, Russia's investment to Indonesia
Good evening, everyone. I'm Alma Angeles. Welcome to the program and out to the news. North Korea fired 3 short-range ballistic missiles Saturday, according to the U.S. military. It's reviving tensions with Washington after President Trump had said Pyongyang was starting to show some respect, following an initial U.S. assessment saying that 2 of the missiles had failed in flight. A spokesman for the U.S. Pacific Commandator said the 2 weapons had not failed but flew approximately 250 kilometers in a northeastern direction. Now, one of the 3 missiles blew up almost immediately, with none of the weapons posing a threat to either North America or the U.S. territory of Guam. Lee Il-woo, an analyst at North Korea Defense Network, said the launches represented a low-level provocative act carried out in response to the U.S.-South Korean exercises, which are seen by Pyongyang as a rehearsal for an invasion of its own territory. The joint exercises started Monday at a time of heightened tensions between Pyongyang and Washington after 2 successful intercontinental ballistic missile launches carried out by North last month apparently brought most of the United States into range for the first time. Meanwhile, Japan says North Korea's short-range missile launches off its coast early on Saturday pose no threats to Japan's national security, though they continue to be on high alert.
我が国の領域や排他的経済水域内に落下するというそのような弾道ミサイルは確認をされていなかったということです。改めて我が国の安全保障に直接影響を与えるものではなかったということが確認をすることができました。
He also said Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has instructed relevant officials to remain on high alert. Government officials say the North is likely to stage more provocative actions as the nation is reacting sharply to ongoing U.S.-South Korea military exercises. And they say Japan will continue monitoring North Korea in close cooperation with the U.S. and South Korea. Meanwhile, the Chinese government says it has started to ban North Korea from setting up joint ventures in the country to comply with a new sanction resolution adopted by the United Nations. The Council on August 5th adopted a resolution banning North Korea from exporting coal and fisheries products or from setting up joint ventures in other countries. China's Ministry of Commerce announced on Friday night, effective that day, it started banning North Korean companies and individuals from establishing joint ventures in the country or increasing capital in existing companies. The measures are expected to have some impact on the North, as its companies are said to have been earning foreign currencies by running restaurants jointly with Chinese companies around the country. Meanwhile, going to the U.S., Hurricane Harvey just slammed into the Texas Gulf. Here's Jane Kathleen Gregorio for an update.
On Friday, August 25th, the morning was quiet and calm in Corpus Christi, Texas. Many residents living on the coast had already evacuated and storm-proofed their homes. Those choosing to stay and brave Hurricane Harvey had already stocked up on water, food, and basic necessities emptying many grocery store shelves. Towards the middle of the day, as water levels and wind speeds continue to rise, residents experience electricity outages.
Be willing and be prepared because these kind of events, happen. Get ready with the house, and especially protect life, that's the important thing. Material things you can always recover whatever you lose, right? But not life. So, and food, food for, I don't know how many days we're going to be without power.
As of right now, many of the Corpus Christi families that stayed behind are preparing to ride out the worst of the storm yet to come.
As you can see here, in one of the neighborhoods in Corpus Christi, Texas, many of the residents have already evacuated or have hunkered down, taking shelter and refuge inside their homes. For the most part, though, a large percentage of the residents have been able to take transportation or leave the day before or earlier this morning to evacuate, as mandatory and voluntary evacuation processes have begun here in Corpus Christi and the coastal Bend region of Texas. And right now we're starting to see a lot of heavy rain coming in as the landfall of the Hurricane Harvey approaches, and we're starting to get a lot of heavier winds. Right now in this particular neighborhood, you can see all the houses have been boarded up with plywood on the windows and doors to protect them. And we'll keep you posted on Net 25, so stay tuned. This is Jane Kathleen Gregorio reporting from Eagle News in Corpus Christi, Texas, and I am one with 25.
Thank you, Jane Kathleen Gregorio reporting from Texas. Meanwhile, Hurricane Harvey, the largest storm to hit the U.S. since Hurricane Katrina in 2005, is now slamming into the Texas coast. It brings 130 miles per hour winds, surging waters, and fears of major damage to coastal towns. Take a look. Now, the storm made landfall as a Category 4 hurricane, the second highest classification, and then barreled into the small city of Rockport, where it brought down the Roof nursing home. It's expected to weaken further, but with its slow forward motion, it will continue to pull some energy from the warm waters of the Gulf and isn't expected to become a tropical storm until early Sunday U.S. time. Mandatory evacuations were ordered for several cities on the Texas Gulf Coast.
This is going to lead to what was described earlier at our conference call as record flooding at multiple locations, ranging all the way from the Corpus Christi area all the way up to the Houston area. If you are in areas between Corpus Christi and Houston, and maybe even some other areas, especially low-lying areas, you need to strongly consider evacuating.
Now, President Donald Trump signed an official disaster proclamation about an hour before Hurricane Harvey made landfall, with fears mounting it could be the worst storm to hit the mainland since Katrina in 2005. Mr. Trump's move will guarantee federal aid for the region. Harvey is the first major hurricane to hit the U.S. in a dozen years, according to the National Hurricane Center, and there were reports of extensive damage in Corpus Christi. The Washington Post reported numerous structures destroyed and buildings collapsed with people inside. These reports were only preliminary, and fuller damage assessments won't be made until midnight or until daylight.
It could be days.
Meanwhile, here are several dramatic shots of Hurricane Harvey taken from the vantage point of the International Space Station cameras. Cameras on the ISS captured the sheer magnitude of Hurricane Harvey as it strengthened into a powerful Category 4 storm and then neared the Texan coast on Friday. A brief but haunting video released by NASA shows Hurricane Harvey's powerful churn towards central Texas, where the slow-moving storm is expected to throttle coastal communities with high winds and up to 25 inches of rain. The footage was captured just after 6 p.m. by cameras aboard the ISS station not long after the tropical cyclone, aided by warm water and favorable winds, regenerated over the Gulf of Mexico. Now, residents have been warned to take shelter from 125 125-mile-per-hour winds and 12-foot ocean surges when the most powerful storm in over a decade slams the mainland U.S. Harvey emerged as a full-fledged hurricane only Thursday afternoon and already is predicted to be the most powerful storm to hit the U.S. since Hurricane Wilma battered South Florida 12 years ago. Meanwhile, businesses closed and lines of cars streamed out of coastal Texas as officials called for residents to evacuate ahead of Hurricane Harvey, that has arrived already as the most powerful storm to hit the U.S. mainland in more than a decade. The White House called Hurricane Harvey a serious storm and said President Trump was planning to visit Texas next week.
Individual responsibility and planning, as always.
It looks like the president will try to make plans to go to Texas early next week, and we'll keep you posted on details about those as they're firmed up.
But this is right up President Trump's alley. Not only has he showed leadership here, but his entire focus has been on making America great again. He is focused on the Americans that voted him into office. He's focused on the Americans that didn't vote him into office. He's focused on affecting positive change in this country. And when we go in and brief him on the preparations for this hurricane, he is acutely focused on making sure that, and just the right thing, by the way, that the American people in the storm's path have what they need. His questions weren't about geopolitical issues or about large political consequences. His questions were about, are you doing what it takes to help the people that are going to be affected by this storm? You might not, if you're living in the Northeast, think about this storm over the weekend. You might go about your business. But the president's worried about the 4.6 million people or so that are in that area of Texas that are going to be affected by this. Because to them, this is the most important thing they're going to have to worry about for the next 24, 48, 72 or more hours. So from my perspective, I was extremely happy with his leadership instincts on this, and I think that that will carry through as you see him respond to this event. Thank you very much, and we'll keep you informed, okay? Thank you.
Meanwhile, Belgian soldiers have shot dead a man in Brussels who attacked troops with a knife. Police are treating the incident as a terror attack. Take a look. Now, the assault took place on Friday evening in the city center. Police identified the assailant as a 30-year-old Somali national, and authorities say they have no information connecting him with terrorism, but reports say during the attack, he shouted in Arabic, Allahu Akbar. The assault occurred in a downtown area popular with tourists and locals. The soldiers were not seriously hurt in the attack. One had a facial wound and the other's hand was wounded. Prosecutors said the man, who was not known for terrorist activities, had twice shouted Allahu Akbar during this attack, and the case passed from local to federal prosecutors who typically handle terrorist cases. A spokeswoman for the prosecution service said they were treating the case as one of the attempted terrorist murder. Belgian authorities have tightened security measures since terror attacks in March last year at Brussels airport and railway station. Over in Barcelona, thousands of Muslims marched through Barcelona to condemn the terrorism. Lovely Apple Joyce Fabros reports.
More than 140 Muslim organizations and associations in and around Barcelona have taken part in a rally in Plaza Catalunya on Monday afternoon, August 21, 2017, denouncing the terrorist attacks last Thursday, August 17, in Las Ramblas of Barcelona and in Cambrils of Tarragona, in which 14 people died. About 1,300 people from the Muslim community in Catalonia participated in the rally, which convened with the motto, "The Muslim Community Against Terrorism." From Plaza Catalunya, participants went down to Ramblas to Liceo, where the white van ended its dreadful journey.
Bueno, pues está haciendo un poco en representación de que no todos los musulmanes tienen este problema del terrorismo y simplemente como para cohesión de todo el pueblo, no es más.
There are slogans and their shouts, called the attention of the people in La Rambla, where hundreds of people went throughout the morning to put candles, bouquets, and posters in memory of the victims, and to show their disconformity and condemnation towards the attack. Along 500 meters traveled by the van that killed people on Thursday, there were improvised memorials dedicated to the victims of the attack. The Fuente de Canaletas, where players and fans of Barcelona Football Club celebrate their triumphs, has now become one of those memorials.
Reporting from Barcelona, Spain, I'm Lovely Applejace Fabros for Eagle News.
The Philippines' largest Muslim rebel group says it has lost 10 fighters in battles to stop a growing force of radical militants who support the ISIS group. The Moro Islamic Liberation Front is seeking to prevent the militants from gaining a foothold in an area of Mindanao Island that the MILF calls its own, according to senior rebel leader Mohaker Iqbal. Iqbal said 50 or so militants had already pledged allegiance to ISIS and had ties to gunmen waging a deadly 3-month-old battle with government forces in the southern city of Marawi. Now, Iqbal said the MILF's current battles against another group near Datu Salibo showed ISIS was becoming a threat in other parts of the south.
Ito ang kampo nila. At saka flag nila, nahuli namin.
Kahit na masakit po sa damdamin namin na lumalaban kami dito sa tubig, nagsakripisyo kami para maalis sila dito sa amin.
Gaano kahalaga yun sa MILF?
Mahalaga sa amin yung maalis namin sila ito sa teritoryo ng Walong Bisko man.
Dahil teritoryo nyo ito?
Teritoryo namin ito.
The MILF has repeatedly warned that if the peace process collapses, it will lose many of its younger members to ISIS-aligned groups. Indonesian militants plan to detonate a radioactive dirty bomb, according to security sources, highlighting the rising ambitions of extremists to wreak destruction in the world's largest Muslim-majority nation. But experts cast doubt on their expertise, equipment, and chances of success. The plot was foiled when police raided homes and arrested 5 suspects in Bandung, West Java last week. After the raids, police spoke of a plan to explode a chemical bomb but provided no other details. The plot comes as Indonesia grapples with an influx of militants deported from other countries and the fallout from the Islamic State-led siege in Marawi in the Philippines that regional leaders and analysts worry has energized militants across Southeast Asia. In other news, U.S. President Donald Trump granted a pardon to former Arizona lawman and political ally Joe Arpaio, the self-proclaimed toughest sheriff in America, less than a month after he was convicted of criminal contempt in a case involving his department's racial profiling policy. Trump had signaled this week that the first presidential pardon of his administration would go to Arpaio, 85, whom he has frequently praised for his hardline immigration stance.
I have fought on the front lines to prevent illegal.
Going now to Russia, Philippine and Indonesian ambassadors hosted a press briefing in Russia as part of celebrations of the ASEAN's 50th anniversary. Some of the topics discussed in Russia was to strengthen the political cultural cooperation plus strengthening tourism industry. Here's Lisa David from our EBC Russia Bureau.
With the celebration of ASEAN 50th anniversary, Philippine and Indonesian ambassadors hosted a press briefing here at Rosia Sevonia. One of the goals of the ASEAN community is to strengthen the political cooperation, cultural, and also in tourism.
In the press briefing, accomplishment of ASEAN on its 50th year and future prospects were discussed. Indonesian Ambassador Muhammad Wahid said that there's an increase of 54% on the business partnership between Indonesia and Russia. And last year, Russia's investment to Indonesia increased by 40 to 50% despite the fact that they suffer decrease in growth of investments. Philippine Ambassador Carlos Soreta said that Russian businessmen are right to look at ASEAN because growth rate is very high and continues to rise. He further said that Russia can be a very important partner for all ASEAN countries. Ambassador Soreta and Ambassador Wahid were asked regarding business partnership with Russia.
Пожалуйста, с кем вы из бизнес-сообщества рассматриваете встречи, либо деловые отношения, поскольку наш клуб, он же себя зарекомендовал и готов взаимодействовать на уровне бизнеса и интегрироваться в совместные проекты.
We also welcome the initiative to have a ASEAN-Russia Business Forum. We are particularly interested in investments from Russia for infrastructure and agriculture and tourism in the Philippines.
A few days ago, on the 4th of 6th of we organized the second festival, and among the festival, in between the festival, we organized the first business forum, Russia Business Forum, which is the biggest so far, attended by 350 businessmen from the group. So during the festival itself, we had trade minister coming, we had 5 governors from the side, we had 8 mayors and head of business.
When Ambassador Soreta were asked regarding military partnership between Russia and Philippines and their point of view on North Korea Peninsula issue, he said that Russia and Philippines did talk about cooperation because they are both eager to fight terrorism. The Philippines will support any peaceful solutions on the North Korea issue. He also said that Russia can help the Philippines in fighting terrorists in Marawi.
Maraming matutulong ang Russia dahil ang Russia ay makatulong, for example, sa intelligence. Napakalawak ng kanilang intelligence network tungkol lalo na sa terrorism dahil they have a very strong presence in the Middle East, lalo na sa Syria, lalo na sa intelligence tungkol sa ISIS. Nakatulong ko sila. Isa yun sa mga tulong nila. Tapos tumitingin din tayo sa mga armas na maaari natin gamitin para lumakas ang ating abilidad na supuin ng mga terorista sa Pilipinas.
Indonesia and Philippine ambassadors look forward in continuous engagement of Russia in all ASEAN affairs such as in education, economic, cultural, and political growth.
ASEAN has survived many challenges to its resilience and existence over the past 50 years. Much has been accomplished, but so much more need to be done. I'm Lisa David, EBC Russia correspondent, and I am one with 25.
I'm standing in the village of Hafachane in the Kingdom of Lesotho. Never heard of it? That's because it's a small country, landlocked within the country of South Africa. When you come here, you feel almost as if you've stepped back in time. Well, a lot of that has to do with these mountains and this topography. You'll find no cell phones here, no TVs, no satellite dishes, no running water. Yet even here in this place that seems untouched by time and technology, yes, even here you'll find the Church of Christ, with a newly built house of worship being dedicated today.
They are so happy and they are so grateful.
They didn't expect such a beautiful chapel in their village, so that they're happy. What came in their minds was that, oh, really, God is with them here in this village.
Minister of the Gospel, Brother Stephen Fajardo, introduced the people of this village and the surrounding villages of Semongkong to the Iglesia ni Cristo. He was able to reach out with the help of translators like Tabiso.
The other challenge that I faced as a translator is that I had to ride the horse for so long, translating in the mountains for 2 hours, maybe, to be precise, to get to the villages.
As their interest in the church grew, so did their desire for a suitable place of worship. They then donated this piece of land and worshipped right here, in the frigid conditions of the mountains of Lesotho. Yet they continued to make their way up from the valleys and down from the mountaintops, each day witnessing the chapel rise from the ground and toward the sky.
They were expecting that the promises that were made, that the chapel will be built here, should be fulfilled. The promises are fulfilled, that's why they are so thankful.
The chapel seats 300 worshippers. The roof is being fitted with solar panels. Yet its most notable feature is its facade, crafted from stones hand-cut by the villagers themselves, a labor of love and a source of joy to the village's chief.
She's so grateful because her people welcome the Church of Christ in this village. Her dream is that God has opened the doors for the villagers.
The doors to this chapel open today, with a worship service officiated by Iglesia ni Cristo Minister of the Gospel, Brother Glicerio B. Santos.
The reason why the Church of Christ have this kind of activity is first to help the people in their daily needs, but most especially the help for their souls.
After the service, the brethren were served a light meal. They then received food parcels from the Felix Y. Manalo Foundation.
Our EBC correspondent Priscilla Tulo reports from Africa, where the Church of Christ dedicated a new house of worship in Hafochane village in Lesotho. Here's her report.
I'm standing in the village of Hafochane in the Kingdom of Lesotho. Never heard of it? That's because it's a small country, landlocked within the country of South Africa. When you come here, you feel almost as if you've stepped back in time. Well, a lot of that has to do with these mountains and this topography. You'll find no cell phones here, no TVs, no satellite dishes, no running water. Yet even here in this place that seems untouched by time and technology, yes, even here you'll find the Church of Christ, with a newly built house of worship being dedicated today.
They are so happy and they are so grateful. They didn't expect such a beautiful chapel in their village, so that they're happy. What came in their minds was that, oh, really, God is with them here in this village.
Minister of the Gospel, Brother Stephen Fajardo, introduced the people of this village and the surrounding villages of Semongkong to the Iglesia ni Cristo. He was able to reach out with the help of translators like Tabiso.
The other challenge that I faced as a translator is that I had to ride the horse for so long, translating in the mountains for 2 hours, maybe, to be precise, to get to the villages.
As their interest in the church grew, so did their desire for a suitable place of worship. They then donated this piece of land and worshipped right here, in the frigid conditions of the mountains of Lesotho. Yet they continued to make their way up from the valleys and down from the mountaintops, each day witnessing the chapel rise from the ground and toward the sky.
They were expecting that the promises that were made that the chapel will be built here should be fulfilled. The promises are fulfilled, that's why they are so thankful.
The chapel seats 300 worshippers. The roof is being fitted with solar panels. Yet its most notable feature is its facade, crafted from stones hand-cut by the villagers themselves, a labor of love and a source of joy to the village's chief.
She's so grateful because her people welcome the Church of Christ in this village. Her dream is that God has opened the doors for the villagers.
The doors to this chapel open today, with a worship service officiated by Iglesia ni Cristo Minister of the Gospel, Brother Glicerio B. Santos.
The reason why the Church of Christ have this kind of activity is first to help the people in their daily needs, but most especially the help for their souls.
After the service, the brethren were served a light meal. They then received food parcels from the Felix Y. Manalo Foundation. Reporting for Eagle News, I'm Priscilla Chulu.
Thank you, Priscilla. We'll be back with more news right after this break. Stay tuned. The downfall is complete. Jay Wiley, the billionaire head of South Korea's Samsung Group, one of the world's biggest corporate empires, on his way to prison for 5 years. It's being seen as a watershed moment for the man, the company, and the country as a whole.
It's a great thing for democracy in South Korea, and hopefully over time it moves to an era of greater transparency, a little bit less of a sliding door between business and government, and that will be a good thing for the kind of business culture within South Korea.
The 6-month trial concludes a scandal that even brought down the president, a court ruling that Lee had bribed South Korea's former leader to help secure control of a conglomerate that owns Samsung Electronics, the world's leading smartphone maker, charges he still denies.
As a lawyer, I cannot accept any of the legal judgments or the fact-finding in the ruling. We will make an appeal immediately, and we are confident the ruling will be overturned.
Prosecutors had demanded a 12-year jail sentence since Lee also faced charges of embezzlement and perjury. Some have suggested he got off lightly because of Samsung's importance to the economy, but the impact on the company could still be severe.
It could actually have a direct impact on the revenues of Samsung here, because other business will and government will feel less inclined to do business with them.
But investors' fears of a leadership vacuum appeared somewhat muted, shares in Samsung Electronics falling 1% on the news. Several refineries shut down production as Hurricane Harvey barrels its way towards the Texas Gulf Coast, which makes up nearly half of U.S. refining capacity. Fred Katayama reports.
As Hurricane Harvey barrels its way toward the Texas coast, energy companies are shutting production and evacuating workers. 4 refineries in Corpus Christi and 3 Rivers were closing ahead of the monstrous storm. The government said nearly 15% of natural gas production was halted and almost 10% of crude output capacity has been shut. The Gulf Coast accounts for nearly half of the country's refining capacity. Almost a fifth of U.S. crude is produced offshore. Bernadette Johnson is Vice President of Market Intelligence at energy analytics firm Drilling Info.
So there are 18 refineries that are in basically the flood path, not directly the storm path, but that could be impacted by floods. And those 18 refineries represent a lot of capacity for the U.S. We have some gasoline, diesel in storage, but if any of that infrastructure is permanently damaged or damaged long term, then there is certainly a risk that you could see some higher gasoline prices, higher diesel prices, some bottlenecks in that supply chain.
Harvey is potentially the biggest hurricane to hit the U.S. mainland in more than a decade. The Category 2 storm, packing winds of 105 miles an hour, could intensify and dump up to 35 inches of rain over parts of Texas. Flood warnings are also in effect for Louisiana and northern Mexico. Crude prices rose Friday, and benchmark gasoline prices spiked to their highest level since mid-April. Harvey could also flood shale oil fields in southern Texas. EOG Resources cut back drilling and shut down some production. ExxonMobil and other oil and natural gas producers have evacuated staff from offshore platforms in the storm's path.
U.S. President Donald Trump signed an executive order that prohibits dealings in new debt from the Venezuelan government or its state oil company in an effort to halt financing that fuels President Nicolas Maduro's dictatorship, according to the White House. The order is Washington's biggest sanctions blow to date against Maduro and is intended to punish his leftist government for what Trump has called an erosion of democracy in the oil-rich country already reeling from an economic crisis.
We urge those within the regime, including those who have been sanctioned, to distance themselves from the violence and the dictatorship. President Trump made it clear the status quo is unacceptable. Today's actions is the next step towards freedom for the Venezuelan people. This is not about changing leadership per se. This is about restoring the democratic process and rule of law. Pressure on the regime to abandon its disastrous...
Banning trades on new bonds will make it tricky for Venezuela's ailing state-run company PDVSA to refinance its heavy debt burden.
Per se, this is about restoring the democratic process.
Nawala ng sense yung ano ko. And before we go on a break, this next story is making news for making moves. Take a look. Now, once they're lined up and lighted up, these mechanical marvels stand up to get down in a synchronized shindig that strove to set a record. These 1,069 harmless Dolby robots from WL Tech were dancing their little metal hearts out this week to set a record for the most robots dancing simultaneously. And it looks like congratulations are in order because according to the folks at the Guinness World Records, these nearly knee-high sized robots did in fact break the world record. Maybe they were just going through the motions, but once they got in gear, nothing interrupted their regularly scheduled programming, and you can see how well they were all connected to the dance circuit. Take a look. We'll be back with more news right after this break. Stay tuned. Thailand's former Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra has fled to Dubai, according to her senior members of her party, a day after she failed to show up for a negligence ruling in which she faced up to 10 years in prison. Lady Cristel Pereira has this report.
Thailand's ex-Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra missed a court appearance in a negligence trial on Friday that could have seen her jailed, prompting the Supreme Court to issue an arrest warrant amid snowballing speculation that she has fled the country. Thousands of supporters, outnumbered by security forces, waited from dawn for a glimpse of Thailand's first female prime minister, but she did not show, with a senior party source saying she is likely in Singapore. If her flight is confirmed, Yingluck will have joined her billionaire brother Thaksin in self-exile, a knockout blow to the family and their political ambitions. Yingluck's government was removed by a military coup in 2014. In a day of high drama here in Thailand, Yingluck missed her court hearing for negligence over a flagship rice subsidy policy, which carried up to 10 years in prison and a life ban from politics. Her lawyer said she is sick and asked to delay the ruling. The court does not believe she is sick and has decided to issue an arrest warrant. Fearing she may flee the country, lead Judge Chief Suleiman told the court rescheduling the verdict to September 27. A minister in her government was jailed hours later for 42 years in a separate trial for corruption linked to the policy. Thai junta chief Prayut Chan-o-cha denied knowledge of her whereabouts, but ordered border checkpoints to be stepped up, while his number 2, Prawit Wongsuwon, said it was possible Yingluck had fled through neighboring country, Cambodia. Yingluck's brother Thaksin Shinawatra, also a former premier, fled Thailand in 2008 before he was convicted of graft and handed a 2-year jail term. The telecoms tycoon, who once owned Manchester City Football Club, has not returned since, and his Thai passport has been revoked. He is believed to use a Montenegrin passport to travel between homes in Dubai, London, Hong Kong, and Singapore. The Shinawatra family emerged as a political force in 2001 when billionaire patriarch Thaksin swept to power. He jump-started the economy and provided the most extensive pro-poor welfare schemes in Thai history. But critics accused him of using political power to further his business interests. He remained loathed by the Bangkok royalist elite, but cherished by the rural poor. A coup toppled him in 2006, and he fled overseas. In a Facebook post on Thursday, Yingluck asked her followers to stay home to avoid any incidents stoked by people with ill intention against the country and us. A senior source in the Shinawatra's pro-Thai party said that, as of now, she is likely in Singapore. It is impossible she left without the military green light. Reporting from Bangkok, Thailand, this is Lady Cristel Pereira, and I am one with 25.
Visitors discover seahorses, sharks, and other inhabitants of the sea in over 40 authentically designed freshwater and saltwater basins that house thousands of fascinating inhabitants. Many of these creatures are on the endangered species list, and they were saved and cannot be put back into their natural habitat or were born and raised within the framework of sea life conservation projects in an aquarium. Kathleen Fanner takes us to Switzerland's sea life.
You are looking for a fun activity with your family, even on a gloomy Sunday, Sea Life here in Constance, Germany might be the right place to visit.
The Sea Life Aquarium in Constance, Germany is located directly at the Bodensee, which is only 5 minutes away from the Swiss border. This ocean exhibit is open for all ages who would like to get to know more about the life under the sea. The aquarium is divided into 5 different environments. Visitors learn about the inhabitants of the Lake Constance, the Rotterdam harbor, and get to see the sharks and rays from the North Sea. Hungry piranhas await you in the rainforest environment, while the penguins from the cold Antarctic environment show their diving skills. In order to experience what the creature from the sea feels like, children are also able to touch the animals in the touch pool. A tour through the whole aquarium could take up to 2 hours if you would like to observe everything about the animals in detail. It's a time well spent with excitement and fun for the children. I hope I was able to brighten up your day with a visit here in Sea Life. I'm Kathleen Panner. I'm 1 with 25.
EBC's Darlene Belen takes us to a total solar eclipse viewing event at the Clemson University grounds where spectators cheered on as the much-awaited event took place. Take a look.
While solar eclipses are not... Some are calling this a once-in-a-lifetime event. People from coast to coast in the United States witnessed a total solar eclipse on August 21st. While solar eclipses are not necessarily rare, the opportunity for so many people across the country to see the moon covering the sun has not been experienced in decades. Gathered wherever open sky could be found and armed with their solar-filtered glasses, onlookers in the southeastern U.S. cheered as the moon's shadow raced across and covered the sun for a few mesmerizing minutes. It is estimated that millions traveled, some for hours, to the path of totality to experience the eerie feeling of darkness in the middle of a summer afternoon.
There's telescopes everywhere, the crazy crowds, all the activities for all different kinds of ages. It's really awesome and super impressive. I'm happy to be a part of it.
As the sun re-emerged, onlookers began to look forward to the next American-viewed total solar eclipse, which will happen in 2024. Reporting from Clemson, South Carolina, I'm Darlene Belen, and I am 1 with 25.
Sayang lang yung punta ko dito ng alas 11. Church of Christ continues its propagation work through evangelical missions around the world. Christine Armamento reports from Australia.
In a span of 41 years, the Iglesia ni Cristo or Church of Christ has widely spread in Australia, Oceania. This Philippine-based church has once again proven its unceasing efforts in expansion as another evangelical mission is being held simultaneously across various localities in this region, including areas as far as Papua New Guinea. The Iglesia ni Cristo has been consistent in taking care of their various members, both young ones and adults. This month of August, a special evangelical mission is being held in Australia, New Zealand, and nearby territories, with the heads of every household taking the lead. A perfect opportunity to encourage the rest of the family members to share their faith. Even here in the various towns and cities in Queensland, members continue to show support and find all means to actively participate in the works of faith.
I'm glad to hear the Bible meaning because I'm not familiar with Bible. So it's glad to hear the meaning of the Bible, and then it's understandable, and it's like more think about my future. So everybody's so nice to talk to me, even though my English is not really good. So they're so smiling and invited me, shaking my hand. It's very good, yes.
Yeah, I was invited by my workmate, Cherry, and she gave me a pamphlet for the invitation pamphlet, and she told me about her experience, and she mentioned that she goes to church every weekend and on Wednesdays, so I must come and have the same kind of experience. So I was very excited to be here, and so I invited one of my friend also.
Yeah, Jenna invited me. Actually, I never been to church, so I was very excited to go.
Yeah, it was pretty good and very peaceful, very positive, and yeah, I would like to come here again and know more about what's written in the Bible and know more details, and also expect to follow the preachings of God.
Yeah, same. I think Paul,
Yeah,
Brother Paul. Yeah, Brother Paul said a lot of good things about the teachings and how we can follow. So I would definitely like to come.
What we had today was the Worldwide Evangelical Mission that was sponsored by the head of every household.
All over Australia.
Here in Australia, we had this event in every congregation and group worship service that's within our district. And so we have some now in Queensland that is ongoing. We finished ours here in Western Sydney and as well as the other congregations here. But even as far as New Zealand, they're also joining us in this momentous event.
Under the dynamic leadership of their executive minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, along with the primary church helpers, works of sharing their biblical beliefs and doctrines are massive and extensive. Not only do they share their faith, but they also help the needy through the Aid to Humanity programs and the INC Giving projects, reaching out to members and non-members alike in times of calamities and crisis.
It's inspiring to take as the head of family, as a father of a family. I like to see changes in my family, and the word is so inspiring that it convicted me as the head of the family to bring up my wife and my children in the way that I have acquired in Church of Christ teaching.
We are thanking our Father in heaven because He allowed me to reach this local congregation at Port Moresby, and we just concluded our evangelical mission simultaneously with other locales of the church throughout the world. Well, with God's help, this activity was a success. Actually, the place of worship was filled with visitors, and because the place cannot be accommodated by everybody, we used the downstairs, okay, the open space wherein the visitors were able also to witness our Bible exposition.
The Executive Minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, I'd like to thank you for the word that you have under this teaching in Church of Christ, which is really embraced us to become who we are as the member in Church of Christ today with my family. And I extend my greetings with my family to you also. And to be quite honest, the aim and objective through these teachings is to win souls for the salvation.
As always, the church members continuously participate and unite in all of the propagational activities, showing their unity with their church administration. Reporting from Townsville, Australia, this is Christine Armamento, and I am 1 with 25.
Our ABC correspondent Arnie Aquino catches up with Filipino artist Glyza De Castro, who's on a tour in Toronto, Canada. Arnie?
For our showbiz update, we bring you one of the stars from Encantadia in GMA 7. That's right, Glyza De Castro, will be in Toronto performing a concert. Let's check it out.
Filipina actress Glyza De Castro, better known as Sangre Perena, comes to Toronto as part of the final leg of her tour in Canada, entitled Women in Music.
It's actually my third time here. Yung first time ko was in Toronto for GMA Pinoy TV, and then second one was Rocksteady with Julia Clarete. This time, I'm really excited because I'm playing with my cousin. We just finished Encantadia with GMA. After that, I think I'm gonna focus on music.
Equally talented in music and arts, Glyza says she will now focus more on her singing after wrapping up her GMA acting gig.
I'm going to be doing a concert on October 27 sa Music Museum. I'm thankful for social media. It's a good tool for communication and for engaging the fans.
Maple G5, one of Glyza's biggest supporters in Canada, was also in attendance at the concert.
You traveled a long way to come all the way here in Toronto just to support Glyza.
Yes, actually this is my second time. The first one was last 2015. I went all the way from Winnipeg just to see her concert, and then this is the second time.
I like how the way she interacts with her fans. It's just like normal family or friends.
Glyza's concert in Canada was produced by Great Smile Productions. Marilyn and Crystal admitted that their Filipino artists' fan base abroad is their inspiration for organizing concerts like these.
Number one purpose of doing this is for the fans, that we had the chance to bring like artists from back home.
Accompanying her on stage were Canadian Idol finalist Martha Joy and Hot Dog Band vocalist Elaine Varola. Both expressed their enthusiasm in performing for an audience outside the Philippines.
Oh, I actually started within the Filipino community and then into Canadian Idol, and it was really the Filipino community that really came and supported me throughout my whole journey there.
We cover like English song or Tagalog song, but most of our crowd are Filipinos.
Overall, the night was filled with soulful Filipino music enjoyed by Glyza's fans here in Toronto.
Glyza De Castro sure is an exceptional, multi-talented artist. Reporting from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, my name is Arnie Aquino. I am 1 with 25.
That's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angeles, always 1 with 25. Good night.